thank you to Secretary Ross very much. And my name is Trey Martin. I'm the Deputy Secretary of the Agency of Natural Resources. And so first, thank you for that lovely speech, and thank you to the Governor. But mostly, I want to thank you all for being here today. I'm deeply honored to get to talk to you this morning about clean water and about the work that we've been doing, the work that we're doing with the Agency of Agriculture and with this administration. And I guess I want to start by saying that we're in an extraordinary place and an extraordinary time right now. To be where we are during this legislative session, with this governor having made the commitment that he's made to make this a top administration priority. To be able to work with the Agency of Agriculture, where it's their top priority to get clean water right. Well, you know that it's a top priority of the Agency of Natural Resources, but it has been for a long time. Having this partnership is something new, it's something different, and it really is something that I want all of you to take a moment just to reflect upon and to get that this is a very different place than we've ever been on clean water in the state of Vermont. And I think it's worth beginning by noting that. But I also wanted to, when I talked to Lauren and Kim about what to say to you all today, I've been trying to think about what it is that I could tell you that would be helpful. Because you did know that we are in this extraordinary place, and you know that this legislation is moving, you know that we've asked for the resources to do this. So what else could I tell you that would be helpful this morning? And so I thought I'd make sort of three main points that you maybe could take out of here today. The first is that this is a long journey. It's not just the legislative session seems to take it exists in like Narnia time. It's not even real. It seems like a long way to May right now to me. But if we're going to get clean water right in Vermont, we need to be ready for generations. It's not just Lake Champlain. Water's all across this state. Almost every basin in this state has impaired waterways. Whether it's Lake Memphremagog, the Connecticut River, the stormwater impaired brooks throughout the state. I think one of my basin planners told me that there's really only one basin in southwestern Vermont that doesn't have a major impairment for nutrient pollution in the state of Vermont. And not only is it pervasive and all across the state, but it's a problem that takes time to address. It means that we have to address all those sectors that the governor mentioned this morning. We have to talk about how we deal with our roads, how we deal with development, how we deal with our agricultural lands, how we deal with our forested lands. That is a significant and major challenge. And then when you think about what you have to do to actually make progress at a time when development pressure is not decreasing, the state's population in the developed areas of the state are going to continue to grow. So how do we fold into our plans the ability to offset that new development and what happens when you create new development and water runs off it, it erodes soil and it carries the nutrients bound to that soil into receiving waters? We have to take that into account in our plan. We have to take into account that the climate is changing, that the climate is wetter, that there are more heavy precipitation events now than there were 20 years ago, 50 years, 100 years ago, which means that has to be part of what we do as we look ahead. So we're looking across the state, we're looking backwards and forwards, and it is a fight that I want you guys all to be ready to take on, not just this year or next year, or maybe even in our own lifetimes, but to pass this on to your kids and your grandkids, because we need to be committed to this on into the future for 40, 60, 100 years. That's my first point. Second thing I want to tell you, though, is I want to honor and I want to reiterate what Secretary Ross said, that the conversation has changed. In Vermont right now, it's not just that we have these partnerships that didn't exist before this administration. It's not just that we have this tremendous congressional delegation that's doing fundraising at an unprecedented rate for clean water. But when we have the conversation with people out there, they are getting it in ways that didn't happen before. And I'll just give you an example of that. Earlier this winter, I was up in Swanton talking to a group of farmers and business leaders up there about the Clean Water Plan. And I was being sort of boring deputy secretary and started to talk about the detail-by-detail presentation that we sent to EPA last May. And people raised their hands and they said, wait a minute, we've had plans before, what's different? And isn't this going to take a long time? And isn't it going to cost a lot of money? I said, well, all right, so you guys want to have a frank conversation. Yes, it is going to cost a lot of money. Yes, it is going to take a long time. And even yes, we're not sure how we can, what the ultimate success is going to be and how to measure it, other than, we know we have to meet the water quality standards, and we're aiming for that, but how do we get there? Are we going to get there? And you'd think that that's not a message that people are really going to appreciate when you say, hey, it's going to cost more than you thought, it's going to take longer than you thought, and boy, we're doing our best to make sure it's successful, but it's even there. We have to stay focused, or else it won't be successful. And instead of chasing me out of the room, when I finished, the people stood up and applauded. I couldn't believe it. This is a group of farmers and businesses who are going to be affected by this, and they were ready for that challenge. And so, not only do you need to know, so that was point number 2, but to go back, number 1, go out and tell people we need to be committed for a long time. But also go out and tell them that the conversation has changed and we're all in this together. Vermonters want to know that we're in this with them and that we're willing to build those bridges, that we're not going to point the fingers anymore, and that we're going to pull together on this and we're going to do it for that commitment. So lastly, the last thing I want to tell you this morning is that this is, I think it's an important thing to remind people, what do you get at the end? I mentioned the water quality standards. Well, sure, we're aiming to have Vermont's waters meet those chemical and biological standards for the amount of phosphorus or dissolved oxygen or turbidity in our waters. That's really important. But what we're really in this for, we're in this for our economy. Vermont's economy depends on tourism, it depends on recreation, it depends on real estate land base. And if we don't have clean water, our economy will suffer. It'll suffer today, it'll suffer in the medium term, and it will suffer in the long term. We're in this for health. Not only does Lake Champlain feed drinking water to people across the basin, but a lot of our surface waters are drinking water sources. Our surface waters provide a healthy recreational place for people to go. The psychological importance of that can't be underscored enough, I don't think. And to live on the banks of a lake or a river that's polluted and that has the kind of stench or problems that Secretary Ross described is simply not good for the well-being of Vermonters. So for our economy, for our health, for the health of our ecosystems, you know that the Department of Environmental Conservation is very much behind this plan. But the Department of Fish and Wildlife also stands behind this plan because it's good for the flora and fauna of Vermont. The Department of Forest, Parks, and Recreation stands behind it because it's good, because healthy forests are part of this. And so it's the natural communities that people love about Vermont are very much tied to a clean water solution. And finally, it's, if nothing else, you recognize the true beauty of being on a clean body of water, of being able to be out there in a canoe or on a paddle boat, a paddle board, a motorboat, and be able to sit back and enjoy a pristine place, to restore yourself, to find a moment of peace, and to reflect on how it is that we came out of this beautiful natural environment that we all love, and be able to find that solace in your life is fundamental to the way that we live in Vermont. And if we don't get this right, we will lose that too. So thanks very much, you all.